Well, basically my family growing up, I came from a blue collar family. I mean, my family immigrated here from Italy. My great grandfather was a shoemaker. So we were a working class family. And my parents, my grandparents, they instilled in us, education is key because they didn't have that opportunity. So I was really fortunate. I went through high school, graduated early, then went into college, graduated early, went straight into law school. And by the time I graduated from law school, I was 24 years old. And, at that point, I was, a new lawyer, and I was young enough that actually all four of my grandparents were still alive. And so the first thing, when they found out that I passed the bar exam, passed it on the first attempt, they said, well, plan our estate for us, as long as you're a lawyer now. So I got to do that. And, one of the challenges early on, my grandmother at the time was on kidney dialysis. And kidney dialysis, this is back in 1984 when I passed the bar. The cost of it was really prohibitive for a lot of families. And so I had to learn how to reposition some of the assets that her and my grandfather had accumulated so that they wouldn't be depleted, and yet she'd get the kind of care that she needed. So I had to figure that out. And as a new lawyer, I had to crack the books and figure it out, and I did. So, I bring that kind of personal experience to the planning that I do for families that come to me now. And, as time progressed, obviously all four of my grandparents are dead now. They've passed away. Two of them had moved to Florida. And I was able to settle their estate while I was here in California in basically 90 days because I had everything organized when the time came. And the same thing, with my other grandparents who had followed me and moved out here, when the time came, I was able to, manage their affairs and take care of their affairs and settle their estate in a relatively short period of time. So, I've walked that walk for my own personal family. And, the documents that we put in place for people, it's not only to see how you're going to pass everything in the event that you pass away. My father was a 40-year smoker. And unfortunately, when he was in his mid-60s, of course, gets diagnosed with lung cancer and emphysema. And, luckily, the lung cancer responded to treatment, actually was in remission, but the emphysema just destroyed his lungs. And unfortunately, one winter, he got a cold. And, if you have emphysema, you get a cold. With him, he turned 70 years old in the intensive care unit. And again, I had documents set up for him that he said, if I wind up on a respirator and that's going to be my life, that's not what I want. And so, unfortunately, that's how he wound up. And I had to make that decision because I was his agent to do that. And we had discussed it. And I had talked with his pulmonologist, and his pulmonologist said, we're trying to give him massive doses of antibiotics, but unfortunately, it's not responding. This is what it's going to be. And I said, well, okay, that's not what he wanted. So, I had the documents in place, and when you have those, the hospital actually takes a copy, puts it in the medical file, and it gives the physician, a sense of confidence that what they're going to do is backed by some kind of legal authority. Anyway, I've had to do that in my own family. So I've seen these documents in action. And the flip side is, I had clients recently, a couple of years ago, 5 children. Father didn't have any documents. Wound up in the same position as my dad. 4 of the children were in agreement with removal of life support. The youngest son was not in agreement. And of course, he raised a holy heck with the doctors at the hospital, and so the doctors just backed off because they didn't know. Nobody's got authority to do anything. And that poor guy, he languished for a few days on life support. That wasn't his intent. Unfortunately, it was only a few days. Or maybe fortunately it was only a few days, but you want to have documents in place to prevent those things from happening. And you want to give direction to people to let you know what your wishes are. So, that's how I came to doing this business for people. And I enjoy doing this kind of work because it gives families that kind of certainty that my wishes are going to be carried out. And really what you're doing is you're taking the burden off the people that you leave behind because you're telling them, here's what I want done, and here's the documents that I put in place to demonstrate it. So that's kind of what brought me to this business, and kind of full circle how I do what I do for people now and why I think it's important.